Short Stories with a Twist by Kevan Eveleigh. Chapter 1. Cliffhanger. It was life or death. Fate had brought him to this wild, inhospitable place. His survival rested on one decision: to jump or not to jump. This was a critical moment, for he could live or he could die. Jump and he might survive, but to do nothing and remain here meant certain death. Across the valley floor, moving away from him in the distance, he noticed an irregular column of ant-like orange figures, slowly ascending the spine of a steep, rocky outcrop. It was a mountain rescue team, accompanied by a bright yellow helicopter. In vain he tried to cry out for help, but his weakened voice was drowned by the swirling wind as the weather closed in around him. They were as oblivious to his ordeal as he was to theirs. He stood at the edge of the perpendicular cliff face, some 400 feet from the top. Below him was another 800 feet of sheer, blind terror. A vertical wall of limestone, punctuated by the occasional dwarf sapling of equally condemned occasional vegetation. 8 feet away to the right-hand side, across a bottomless void, lay the end of an impossibly dangerous scree slope. This ran right over the cliff edge, like a jagged, frozen waterfall, down to oblivion. The slippery, stony incline was part of a steep gully, galloping up to the freedom of the mountain ridge above. Focus. Aim for the scree slope and you will be safe. Trembling, he balanced on the very edge of the precipice. His heart rate increased dramatically, uncontrollably, until he could hear it pounding inside his ears. Involuntarily, his head and whole body vibrated and began to shake. Panic gave way to fear, and in turn to horror, as he summoned the courage to look down. His mind was now racing. Everything had been going so well. He asked himself, how has it come to this? Yesterday there had been 2 of them trapped in this place, but now he stood alone. At the bottom of the cliff lay the dead body of his older brother. The certainty of salvation had lain there for the taking. All he had to do was to get it right, but he failed. For several hours he lay dying until his battered, bruised and crumpled body was consumed by the darkest night when death became his friend. Once again he looked out at the bright orange coats in the far distance, now much smaller than before, huddling together against the oncoming storm as the weather worsened. He made his decision. Composing himself, he looked up and then down. To maximize his opportunity, he tried to stand up to his full height against the fierce, sapping wind. His heart rate immediately exploded. Faster, 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 until he started to lean forward, to let gravity take over. He flexed his legs. He took a huge breath of air. Now! Self-doubt is the most powerful of enemies. Stepping back, he stopped himself just in time. He couldn't do it. Fear welled up inside him, the distress encouraging his emotions to run primitively wild. Confusion had overtaken sanity. Now he had lost track of how long he had been there. He was cold, hungry, thirsty, and bereaved. Logic kicked in. There were only 3 possible outcomes. If he jumped and failed, he would die. If he stayed here, he would surely perish. If he jumped and got it right, his life was saved and his future certain. His mind was made up in an instant. There was only one real choice: jump. Once again, he moved to the edge of the ledge. A stiff westerly breeze hit him straight in the face, and he wobbled a bit, but there was no stopping him this time. He had to be positive. He had to be bold. Call it brave, call it survival instinct. But with one last dramatic inch forward, he looked resolutely down into the abyss below. Then he analysed the distance to the scree slope. Do it. He stood up to his full height, surveyed all around him for the last time, and with all his might, he kicked himself off and away from his rocky prison. Then, nothing. He began to fall, past the scree slope into the open space, plummeting towards the valley floor, losing height quickly, and all at once the ground started to rise towards him. Falling, 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 when suddenly an unexpected, unscripted, almighty battle began to take place. This was an age-old colossal contest between evolution and gravity. Luckily for him, evolution emerged as the victor, as he spread his juvenile wings and soared through the air to join his parents in the distance. One day, every eagle must take its first flight.